Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What? Do what?
Let the dogs out. Ooh, let the dogs out. Ooh.
Off the Hook, airing on offthehook.com. Your home for real news, real opinions, and what really matters about Tennessee athletics. Always available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, iHeart. Like, share, follow, subscribe. Always available wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
Off and rolling on this Monday morning. Hope you had a fantastic weekend with Amanda LaFratta. I'm Dave Hooker. Caleb Calhoun joins us as there is a lot to talk about. His computer was on fire over the weekend. So not only Tennessee in the Orange Bowl, but the final college football rankings. Colorado makes a crazy hire in Deion Sanders that I just love. Just can't help but love it. We'll get into that. Your biggest gripe from the final college football rankings, and also your thoughts on the Orange Bowl. So good morning, Amanda LaFratta. How are you?
Doing well, Dave. How are you?
I'm well. Glowing this morning as usual. Caleb, so are you. I sense a certain glow, Caleb.
Oh, thank you. I think it's the lighting, but
Got a new LED lighting set. All right, so let's go ahead and get rolling, guys, with the college football ranking came out last night, right in the middle of the NFL day. I'm a little surprised, and they'll probably, maybe at some point, they'll move it to right before the NFL game. I don't know. That depends on networks and the way they correlate. But so just your thoughts on the final rankings. TCU with a loss. Some thought they might fall out. I never thought they deserved to. And there was some shakeups over the weekend. So let me just start wide open with you, Amanda, and get your thoughts on the weekend, and you can tie it into the rankings. What did you think? Because it was so pretty crazy, hectic weekend.
Yeah, I thought USC looked like garbage. I thought that Caleb Williams looked like a poser. I thought he got hurt, and I see that, and I get all that, but again, he goes with the nails that say F Utah, and that backfired a little bit on him. Just not a good role model. Don't like Caleb Williams. I think that's obvious. And that
did factor into my Heisman vote, which I want to talk about later. Go ahead.
I thought that Michigan struggled early against Purdue. They ended up beating Purdue on a neutral site by less than they beat Ohio State at home. So I thought that was very interesting that the playoff committee didn't really take that into consideration. I thought TCU had a very tough loss, still lost. I've never seen a team lose and stay at the exact ranking that they were at, but that's fine. I mean, it came down, college football playoff it came down between, it wasn't going to be the best four teams. It was going to be the most deserving. So you had to choose between the body of work that you felt was most deserving and the people you thought were the best four teams. Because if we're looking at the best four teams, we don't have the best four teams. There's no way. And Vegas will tell you that, just putting people at, having people 14.5 point favorites over people who are in the college football playoff versus the ones who are not. So with the college football playoff, it's either the best four, you want the best four, you want the most deserving, and they went with the most deserving this season.
Caleb, I want to get to you. Please, it would do me a great favor, everyone, as we get to the Down and Dirty at 30. If you would hit that thumbs up button, that like button opens up the show to more potential viewers. And the Down and Dirty at 30 today is brought to you by Zach England of Best of Brock. Zach's got your back, personal injury attorney right here in Chattanooga. And no matter who you're reaching out to, make sure that you reach out to Zach first, because Zach's got your back when it comes to personal injury attorney, car wrecks, and that sort of thing. But be sure and hit that like button. Caleb, I feel like when I kind of sat back and, the season gets going and you're moving so fast that sometimes it's hard to have perspective. I feel like there have been times, especially with Alabama, Georgia last year, that there was an A-plus team on the field. and that it was everybody's job to try to upset them. I don't feel like there's an A-plus team in the field this year. I think that Georgia's probably an A, and you've got a bunch of B-plus to maybe A-minus teams. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I agree, and it's something I got totally wrong because at the beginning of the year, I thought Alabama was going to be an A-plus team.
I did too.
And so completely missed on that. I agree. I'm not sure there's an A-plus team. What I do think, though, is your move, BCS haters, because the BCS would have worked out perfectly this year. We talk about the four most deserving. There are two deserving teams to play for a national championship. Nobody else. Georgia and Michigan. And for any of you that want to come at me and say, well, if they're the two best teams, they'll just beat the other teams in the playoff in the first round. Well, I think they will. But more importantly than that, it's more about, are we not going to value the regular season at all? I mean, we've got, if I were king of the world, I would just be like, let's suspend the playoff this year. There is nobody that deserves to be. It's going to look weird if anybody but Georgia or Michigan wins the national championship this year. And
yeah, I mean, Amanda makes fun of me because I say bet a mortgage payment. I'd bet a year's worth of mortgage payment if you gave me those two teams and the other two. I mean,
I agree.
Not even close.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's
Which
better
is
if you
sad. To me, I think that's sad. I think it's sad that we're going most deserving versus the best because you don't have the four best teams in there.
Well, I am for most. I mean, I am for most.
You
deserving,
are,
though.
and that's fine. But I think that when the college football
Like,
playoff was put on there, it was the four best teams. They wanted the four best. That was the bottom line.
Well,
we don't have the four best.
Well, I wanted to come back to you on that. So, who do you think the four best teams are? If Amanda was the czar of college football, who do you think the four best teams are?
I mean, I'm not sure who the four best are, but I know TCU's not one of them. I can tell you that. I know TCU's not one of them, and I know Ohio State's not one of them. Like, I know those two teams are not the best.
I'm with you on Ohio State. Now, recency would prove you to be true, too, with TCU. But I think the Big 12 is pretty tough this year. I don't have a problem with them being in the top four. It is weird they don't even move after they lose. But I think they're right there. I think I think there's Georgia. I think there's a drop-off to Michigan. I think there's another drop-off to a group of teams. And that could be Alabama, Tennessee, TCU. Well, let's say Tennessee with Hendon Hooker. Okay. So TCU, there could be a whole group of teams, and then maybe Ohio State's in that group. But I like TC maybe a little bit more than you, Amanda. Caleb, what do you think of TCU?
I mean, I mixed on it because they've been squeaking by. But, I didn't think about it until this past weekend. But, outside of Tennessee, there's nobody that they're ahead of that has a better win than them in Texas. And I thought about that over the weekend. Ohio State and Penn State. Actually, Ohio State has a better win. Tennessee has a better win in Alabama. But outside of Tennessee and Ohio State, nobody has a better win than TCU that's behind them in Texas. And TCU beat them. That was a 17-10 game that anybody who watched that game, that was a 24-0 game that looked like 17-10 at the end. TCU absolutely manhandled Texas. Texas didn't belong on the same field as them when people watched that game. And so I didn't think about that until this weekend. I'm going to be honest. But after seeing that, I kind of thought, okay, it's like, I get the idea of the four best teams, but that's, I think you have to base it on what's been done on the field in more than anything else. Because otherwise we might as well just say the games don't matter, and we might as well just put the four teams we think are the best teams in at the beginning of the year.
I'm not sure, guys, that TCU played an elite team like Michigan did, Ohio State, debatable. Like Tennessee did against Alabama, again, debatable. But from top to bottom, if you look at their schedule, their strength of schedule is 8. That's TCU. So if you look at their schedule, they didn't have a lot of gimmies. Maybe they didn't have the toughest schedule in there, but it seemed like week in and week out, they were playing a team that they were only favored to win by, 8 to 12. I mean, not at the most. I thought the Big 12 was pretty good this year. I thought it was the deepest conference. I'm not saying the best conference, but I thought it was the deepest conference.
I agree.
I don't think that I don't think that the Big 12 is that good. It might be the deepest conference, but that's probably because you had good teams at the top in the Big 10 and an SEC. You had good teams at the top and a few in the Pac-12 this season. I don't think that the Big 12 was very good at all. Your best two teams are not great this season. Your best two are Texas and Oklahoma, and neither one of them were very good. Texas showed signs at times of being dominant. They beat Oklahoma 49-0. But you don't see – I don't think the Big 12 can play on the same stage as the SEC. I don't think they can play on the same stage as the top of the Big 10.
Let's go to the message board for a moment. Brittany's saying it's so cold. Hope y'all are staying warm. I'm trying. I just do not like cold weather.
Have a shacket.
A shacket?
A shacket. I highly recommend a shacket.
What's a shacket?
It's a shacket. It's called a shirt. It's a shirt jacket combo. So it's not really a shirt and it's not really a jacket. It's very warm. So
hit that thumbs up button if you like the word shacket. I do. It kind of sounds like a curse word, but it kind of sounds like it's upper crust as well at the same time. So I like that word a lot. Smoky Mountain Red says, good morning, everyone. Good morning to you, Joey, as well. Okay, so this is where I want to go. And Brittany first says, I think TCU stayed at 3 because they didn't want a Michigan-Ohio State rematch in the semifinals. Oh, okay. That is something I do want to address real quick because credit to Reese Davis of ESPN. If you saw that interview of Boo Kerrigan, who heads up the College Football Playoff Committee, he repeated the question, which is typically bad interviewing skills. But he said, I'm going to ask it again. Did the potential of that rematch in the first round come up at all in the room? What did Boo Corrigan say? No, absolutely not. Come on. Come on.
Politics. This is politics.
Also, he didn't have to lie. The playoff committee said when the playoffs started 8 years ago, they actually said up front, we're going to do our best to avoid rematches. Like, we're not going to keep a team out to avoid a rematch, but when we're pairing the teams, we're going to do our best to avoid rematches. They said that. I don't know why they have to lie. I mean,
I just thought that was the most bizarre, just flat out lie that I've ever seen. Just say, hey, why would you want to do that? I mean, it doesn't matter if you believe that's the top 4 teams and you now Amanda doesn't, and a lot of people don't. But if you're standing on firm ground where you say the top 4 teams, I don't care if Georgia's 3, if for some reason it makes some sort of advantage in how it plays out on TV. That's fine with me. I really don't care. And then Travis said TCU stayed to avoid a Michigan-Ohio State rematch. That is true. Joe likes the Big 12, said the second best conference in the country. And as far as politicking, absolutely. Dean pointed that out as well. And when we start to look at the bowl matchups, I'm curious, and it leads me to today's tough question. I always like to let Amanda phrase it because she's better at that. Today's tough question is brought to you by AndyMasonRealEstate.com. Andy Mason and his group have over 40 years of real estate experience. What do? They make sure that you get the best prices, and they make sure that you also get the best service. That's a pretty good combination. It's today's tough question. And it is now today's tough question.
We do our research. Have you done your research?
We're working like heck.
Today's tough question. What's the real debate?
You sipping my soupe, Guadalupe?
Exclusively on Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker and Amanda LaFratta.
You drinking my sake, Kimosabi?
Oh, my God.
Okay, and I want to direct this towards Tennessee fans, which is probably primarily who's on my Twitter. And I'm going to throw this at you. Are you more happy that Tennessee made the Orange Bowl, which is a great bowl, or that Alabama didn't make the college football playoff? Because I don't know about your all's Facebook and Twitter feed, but I saw as much about, yay, Alabama didn't make it. And I do think it's a travesty that because of the head-to-head that Tennessee wasn't ahead of Alabama. But I like the fact that they're in the Orange Bowl. I think Tennessee got maybe slided a little bit, but got a break. I'd rather play Clemson in the Orange Bowl than a Kansas State team that I think is pretty darn good in the Sugar Bowl. And I'm hearing that Clemson's going to have a lot of defections of guys that opt out and go to the NFL as well. And they've got practically a brand new quarterback that they should have played the entire season. So I think there's a lot of things to like about the Orange Bowl over the Sugar Bowl. But Amanda, how do you want to phrase that? Are Tennessee fans more happy that
Happier?
happy?
Happier?
You can say more happy as well, right?
I don't
Can you
think
say
so.
more happy, Caleb?
I
Is
think
that
it's happier.
I think it's happier. I think Amanda's
Okay.
right. It's happier.
okay? Are you more at ease? Nevertheless, are you happier that Tennessee made the Orange Bowl a premier bowl, or that Alabama just didn't make the college football playoff? And to be clear, I don't think any of us thought that Alabama was, or Tennessee for that matter, was going to make the college football playoff, even headed into the weekend with potential upsets. None of us really thought that, right?
No.
No, I didn't think so.
No. Okay. So, I mean,
Most Alabama fans did not think that they were going to make it.
yeah, I don't think
The
so.
majority, it was humorous to watch the on Twitter, the implosion of all other fan bases together at the prospect or the thought of Alabama making it into the college football playoff.
Well, but
that was the funny part.
But that was Alabama and Nick Saban's fault. When they start politicking, and when he starts politicking, that makes him a target. Simply put.
Yes, he politicked because every coach would. It
Right.
shows your recruits that you stand up, that you fight for them. It's a great move as far as recruiting and coaching goes. It keeps your team believing in that coach.
I'm not knocking,
So,
but
I'm not saying you are. A lot of people were, but that's what you do as a head coach. It's a strategic move, whether he thought that they actually had a shot or not. It's strategically the best thing to do.
Yeah,
But it's still fair game to target Alabama if Nick Saban's going to do that. Both things can be true. It's right for Nick Saban to do it, but it's fair to then say, Nick Saban, you're talking, because Nick Saban brought up Vegas odds at halftime, and it's like, well, Nick Saban, if we went by Vegas odds, you would have been the national championship the last 15 years.
No, agreed. It's fair. I didn't say it wasn't fair. I said it's hilarious to watch the meltdowns of fan bases around the world or around the country thinking that Alabama stood a shot when Alabama fans, nobody thought that they stood a shot. Literally no one.
No, I wouldn't say. I think some Alabama fans, I think some fans of other schools thought that Alabama might find a way to slip in, because there is a belief that there is an Alabama bias. I don't believe that to be the case, and the three of us kind of live it. So I mean, I don't see that. I saw some crazy thing that popped into my feed about how the refs were for Alabama or for Tennessee against Alabama because of all of the penalties that were called against Alabama. I think there are people that think crazy stuff all over the place. Don't get me wrong. But I think for Nick Saban to be in a position, again, Caleb, you said it, Mandy, you said it, right thing for recruiting, right thing to do. But to be in a position to politic was a little bit unusual. It seems like, Amanda, that he did that one other time, and I can't remember when, and it worked out for him. It's like 5 or 6 years ago. I could be dead.
2011.
Was it 2011? Did he
rematch with LSU when he when he had the BCS was partially made by the coaches poll, and he had a vote in the coaches poll, and it was between Alabama and Oklahoma State, and he put Oklahoma State at 5 not 3, to help skew the coaches poll in his favor. So, don't necessarily blame him for that. I actually blame the BCS at the time. I'm like, I think the BCS should have forced coaches who have a say to recuse themselves from voting if they are in the running for the national championship. I don't blame Nick Saban for doing it. I would have done the same thing for my team, but
I would have put them. I would have put them 25. I would have put them even lower. I'm not sure they would have been on my ballot. I actually thought there's one guy I don't like, and I'm not going to really get into my ballot, but there's one guy I don't like. Amanda's already said his name. That was not on my ballot in the Heisman, because everybody gets a point. The top one gets 5 points, the second one gets 3 points, and the last one gets a point. I just didn't really care for this dude, so he didn't get one. Please hit that thumbs up and like button. How are we going to do this, Amanda? How are we going to phrase this? Are Tennessee fans more happy at what?
It's already sent. It's, are you happier that Tennessee made the Orange Bowl?
I said more again. Sorry.
Yeah, you did. Or that Alabama didn't make it into the playoff. Tennessee to the Orange Bowl, Alabama not in playoff. That's your 2 options.
Okay, I like it. Clean and cut. What do you think? Yeah, you're right. I just looked it up. Happier. Just thought I'd go ahead and just double check. Oh, I've been saying that wrong my whole life then. You should have caught me way earlier, Amanda. You've known me way too long. But thank you for finally catching me. You didn't have to do so on the air. But anyway, what do you think, Caleb? Do you think Tennessee fans are happier that they went to the Orange Bowl and made a Premier Bowl, or happier that Alabama just didn't make the college football playoff?
Not going to lie, I think they're happier Alabama didn't make the playoff than just yesterday, because they already knew they were going to a Premier Bowl of some sort, and they would have been really annoyed to see Alabama in the playoff when they beat Alabama and just have a better resume than Alabama all the way down the line. I will say, for some perspective, I didn't think about this till last night. This Orange Bowl is a huge opportunity for Tennessee. And the reason I say it's an opportunity, and I don't want to sound like a coach, it's a great opportunity for us, because they all say that. I mean, they're playing Clemson. Guys, this is huge for recruiting and flipping the script of trends in the future, this Orange Bowl. I go back to Clemson in 2013. Here's just a bit of history for everybody. 2013, Clemson beat Ohio State in the Orange Bowl at the end of that year. 2 recruiting classes later, which would have been the first class they could have gotten in 2015, where they got most of their players after that Orange Bowl, which would have been like 99% of their players. That was the first top 5 class Dabo Swinney had. That Orange Bowl, I think, had a huge impact. Part of Clemson's rise has been at Tennessee's expense over the past 10 years. Amari Rodgers, T. Higgins, Trevor Lawrence, all of these guys were Tennessee guys that should have been at Tennessee. And this all started, Dave, you remember, in 2009 when Clemson was a mediocre to above average program, and Lane Kiffin pushed off Taj Boyd, and Dabo Swinney was like, I'll take him. And to cash in on that and the ACC being down, and then it just set in motion a trend of Clemson becoming what Clemson became. This is a chance for Tennessee to really flip the script and for Josh Heupel to make the case to recruits, I'm the guy of the future, not Dabo Swinney. I'm the coach of the future. And you brought this up earlier this year. It helps that Dabo Swinney just can't stop whining about NIL money all the time. And so,
yeah, somebody needs to pull him aside and stop that. And because kids they don't hope to make money now when they go to college, Amanda. They expect to make money. They expect there to be some cash there, even if you're the backup left guard. Now, if you're the superstar, they expect a lot of money. But Amanda, those days are of hoping to get money, I think you would agree, are gone. They expect to get money.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that that's a Dabo Swinney problem. I think that's a NIL problem, and I think it's going to work itself out.
Well, but he's come out and talked about how much he hates NIL publicly.
Understood. He's just being honest. Every coach hates NIL.
Oh, yeah.
Every single one hates it. And he's being honest. So if you value honesty, then you'll go and play for a coach who tells you the honest truth. I mean, it could be
if my parents are having trouble paying their rent, I'm going to go for the coach who's publicly saying he loves NIL, even though he hates it because he's going to cut me a check.
I mean, but it's not up to the coach to cut you the check. And if it is up to the coach to cut you the check, then you're committing violations.
I'm going to go to the place that supports NIL if my parents need their rent paid.
Correct, which Clemson will support the NIL, but doesn't mean the coach likes it. He's saying exactly what every coach feels, but he's too scared to say to players because they're scared it's going to affect the recruiting. And the funny part about what Dabo Swinney is saying is that it's playing out at schools everywhere. The problems with NIL, we saw it at Tennessee. It's playing out with schools everywhere around the country. So for him to bring light to the fact that coaches don't really like it, I think is just being an honest coach. He's being honest with his players. Hey, I'm not going to be fake about it. I don't like the NIL. I don't like it. Doesn't mean you can't make money here. Doesn't mean you won't get it here, because you will. It's Clemson. You're going to get it. But coaches should have no part in it at all, in my opinion, because it has nothing to do with the school, and it should have nothing to do with the coaching staff. It's supposed to be outside sources. It's supposed to be companies and corporations.
Well, no, not anymore. As of like 3 weeks ago, they passed legislation where the universities could be involved. So that's why you saw the Danny White tweet. That's why you saw.
That's going to be a problem. That's going to be an even bigger problem.
Then it's a problem for college football. It's not a problem for individual schools. I mean, I would rather go to the place that has, whether it's Nick Saban's ideal situation where it's spread across the board, which I like from a theoretical standpoint. I don't think it can really work, but I like it. Or it's Tennessee where a top player is going to get significantly more. I want to go to that school that's got a system in place, Caleb. I want to go to that school that says I'm going to get some cash when I go there, and they've got they've already got it laid out. I mean, that's where I want to go if I'm a kid, because the money's everywhere.
Yeah, and I would also say, I mean, fair or not, a lot of this is how players are going to feel. They're 17 years old. I mean, I get your point, man. It's like you're still going to get NIL at Clemson, but if you're a 17-year-old, are you going to feel like Dabo really cares about you if he's sitting on $10 million, you can't pay your rent, and you hear Dabo say, I don't think you should get this money. You can get it, but I don't think you should get it. I study American history, just so people know. I was an American history major in college, and it's one of the certain times where presidents in history have led the country through crisis. A lot of times they weren't making the best decisions, but they were getting reelected because people felt like they cared about it. They just got the feeling that they were trying, at least. And so you're going to get that with Dabo, I think. You're right. You're going to make money going to Clemson, but players going to catch feelings over the fact that a coach making $10 million has a problem with a player who's generating the revenue for him to make that $10 million, by the way, who is the reason he's making that $10 million, saying that they shouldn't make anything. He has a problem with them making anything.
Well, I guess it probably comes down to our core beliefs as Caleb, Amanda, Dave. Do you believe college football players should be paid? And I do. I think they're worth something, but we all have different thoughts on that, and I understand that. I understand it's very non-traditional still. I'll tell you what is non-traditional is the ability to hop on a video conference and work with some of the best financial advisors in the country. That's what you can do with Guardian Investment Advisors. Just go to GIAplantoday.com, GIAplantoday.com. They'll tell you the best place to put your money for your financial future and why, so you have a great understanding. Let's get a breakdown of Clemson coming up next with Chris Landry of LandryFootball.com. She's Amanda LaFratta. I'm Dave Hooker with Caleb Calhoun. Off the Hook Sports, back in 2 minutes.
Inflation has risen to the highest level in over 40 years, according to the April 2022 U.S. Inflation Calculator. Will your investments provide you the income you need in retirement? Are you losing purchasing power of your savings due to inflation? Simply stated, if the cost of goods and services are 8% higher and you're only earning 4% in your investments, that money buys you less of what you need. Right now is the time to act. Call Guardian Investment Advisors today.
Hey folks, Gary Viles here. I want to personally invite you to North Knoxville's newest sports bar and restaurant. It's Big Orange Phillies, located in Black Oak Center. And yes folks, it's happening in Halls. Big Orange Phillies offers family-friendly environment with homemade meals and the best deli-style subs around. Billiards, darts, jukebox, shuffleboard, and cornhole, and a full bar. We also offer valet parking on weekends and during special events. We even have a covered back patio. It's happening at Big Orange Phillies. We want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
This is Al's Nest Barbecue Supply, so come on in and see all the different rubs and sauces we have, plus a complete line of Green Mountain grills. Don't be overwhelmed. We have plenty of help so you can produce the best barbecue and amaze your family and friends. Barbecue is America's food. We'll do what we can to bring you all the best products. We're Al's Nest Barbecue, where Chattanooga goes to grill.
Got cataracts? We can fix that. Never miss another moment. With a little help from Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn at cctis.com.
Saw the mention of Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. I can't tell you how well my LASIK has gone. I can see up close. I can see far away. I absolutely love it, and it is phenomenal. And they're local, so you know that they want to take care of your eyes because their reputation matters in the Knoxville community. Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Their vision centers are outstanding for cataracts, LASIK, whatever the case may be. And we want to bring in a very special guest because I wanted a very early look at Clemson, and we'll do that right now. Chris Landry of Landry Football joins us, brought to you in part by our friends at Owl's Nest Barbecue right there in Ottawa. Owl's Nest Barbecue has the expertise where they can just send you in the direction you need to go, get the right rubs and sauces, and also they've got the Green Mountain Grills, which are awesome. Chris, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. How you guys doing this morning?
I'm well. Before we dive into the actual Tennessee Clemson matchup, any surprise that you had from the rankings last night? I thought they pretty much, or yesterday afternoon, I thought they pretty much fell where I thought they would.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week. It was, after we talked about it later last week, that once the committee spoke on Tuesday, that's the way it was going to be. I mean, whoever was going to be 5 was going to jump into the 4th spot if USC lost. I thought that Georgia, Michigan, and TCU were going to be in regardless. I mean, I'm not surprised that it caused controversy because it always does, and everybody's got thoughts. But I do think that if you look at the entire season and you look at everything, that to me is, there shouldn't have been anybody surprised with what they did leading up to that. So I guess that's the only issue was going to be whether USC was going to win or not, in my mind. And if they didn't, then Ohio State would move in, and that's exactly what happened.
Now, Amanda wants to jump in here. I remind you that Vols Automotive Group on Callahan is your home for car service and car selection. Vols Automotive Group, they want, they need, and they appreciate your business. Vols Automotive Group, Amanda.
So I do want to clarify on Dabo. I think we just talked about him, and I got a quote from him, and I don't think it's fair that people are saying he doesn't like name, image, likeness or NIL, because what he said was, I would have liked to have seen it tied to graduation education. What I said, whenever that was, I still say, I'm against professionalizing college athletics where we get away from the collegiate model and the value of a degree and the value of an education. I've never, ever said I'm against name, image, and likeness. I think it's a lot of common sense. I think it could be more. I think it could be tied more to the education process, so everybody would have had a little more opportunity.
Sounds a little bit like a walkback statement to me. Chris, I know that most of the, if not all the coaches hate NIL, but we were talking about Dabo Swinney. And my question to you with Dabo is, even if he doesn't like it, was it wise for him to talk about the fact he doesn't like it publicly at any point, which he has?
No, it is not wise to do that. You're right. Nobody likes it. No coaches like it. But everybody, if you notice, every coach, when they talk about NIL, and I'm all for players getting paid money. That was kind of nice. That's like, let's translate. So all you recruits, I'm all for you getting money, and that's what they did. Dabo tends to be one of those that speaks and then he thinks later. And so he tends to say things. What he did is the truth serum came out. So people might say, hey, good for Dabo for saying what he truly feels and not trying to mislead. He did say it. That's what he thinks is what most think, but it's not smart to do it. It's had an effect. The fact that they've not embraced it, and not just NIL, but the transfer portal was probably the biggest thing. They're losing guys, and some may be glad that DJ Uiagalelei will likely enter the portal today. Today is official day that they get into the portal, and they don't really bring guys in. I think those are the things that you have to look at and say, well, if they're not participating in it, if they're not going to bring guys in and they're going to lose guys, he's probably looking at that and saying, I probably need to reevaluate it, or at least he should be.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that statement. I wanted to clarify that what he actually said, because I know a lot of people said he hated it, and I'm just clarifying like the reason why, not necessarily he's against NIL, but what he said about it.
Let's talk Clemson for a second, because you mentioned the change at quarterback. And so I did my research on Clemson. I haven't seen them nearly as much as you, but I did that yesterday once the selection was made for the Orange Bowl. And Chris, describe what happened in that quarterback situation and where they are now, because Dabo Swinney said after the ACC championship game, this is the new direction. No more DJ.
Well, if you go through the course of this year, DJ Uiagalelei has been very inconsistent. And it's been a lot of bad with sprinkling in of some good. And Dabo, as he does, he's very passionate. He defended his guy. That's what he does. And, a lot of criticism. Play the young guy. Play Cade Klubnik. That's the key. And he, Dabo was adamant. DJ goes out and has a good game. You see, that's why he's my quarterback and all that. And then, again, you got to be careful about that, because, then he plays poorly. And then you got, now Dave talking about walking it back. Essentially, he's walking it back again. He's saying, Cade Klubnik is my guy of the future. Now, for Clemson, their fan base, and it's always second guessing, Cade Klubnik should have been the starter all year long. And if he was, we could have been 11-1, and who knows, maybe they're part of the conversation in the playoffs, at least this past week with all the chaos. So that's just kind of typically what's happened there. Is Klubnik, to me, while he may not have been ready, it fits more of what Clemson's traditional offense was. And that is, he's got dual threat capabilities. And I think DJ is really a guy that struggles under pocket pressure, and I think that's been a real big problem with him. Look, Dabo more than any, and this goes to his view of NIL and transfer portal, very, very loyal. He kind of is that old school of, come in, I only want my recruits. I want to promote coaches from within, and the guy who's the returning players, they start, and the younger guys have to sit and play. I mean, that, Trevor Lawrence sat maybe in some people's eyes a little bit too long. But it's hard to really say when a young guy is ready, because when people come in and say, and when he plays well, they say, well, should have played earlier. Look at what will happen. Not necessarily. Sometimes it's what you see in practice. And when you start to see it click in practice, that's when you put the guy in. People criticize Tennessee for not playing Hendon Hooker sooner. Well, the Tennessee might have been better if they played him. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe Hendon Hooker would have made a ton of mistakes, and it might have retarded his, progression last year. Don't know that, but that's the story in general of how it plays out normally at Clemson, and what's happened with DJU, who's a California kid who's gotten a lot of criticism. Dabo tried to stick up for him. Now he's going forward with Klubnik, and DJ looks like he's going to enter the portal and probably end out in the West Coast, back where he's from.
If you can hit that like button, thumbs up, we would greatly appreciate it. I want to bring Caleb Calhoun back in here. But first, if you can address that defensive line of Clemson's, it was supposed to be one of the best in the nation. They've had injuries and even just a tragic issue with one of their players and an illness in his family. And it hasn't come together as the most dominant defensive line in the country. And I think that's what most of us thought to begin the year. Why?
Well, a few reasons. It's a talented group. They have, I would say it's fair to say they haven't played up to their talent level. I think there are a few reasons why. I think that, first of all, let's just discuss like the pass rush and defending the pass. It's the pass rush and the coverage that works in a collaborative effort. They've not played very well on the back end. The pass rush has been a little spotty. People have had some success running the football on them at times, and their offense has been spotty. So a lot of times we talk about all the time, and we talk about Tennessee or anybody, the importance of you can't separate offense, defense, and special teams. They are all different units that connect together like a triangle. I mean, they're all connected. And I think the fact that their offense has been so inconsistent has put their defense in bad situations. And I do think it's really hurt them. In the past, when the offense has been really good, that defensive line could tee off and do what they do best, rush the passer. This team is, at times have been really good against certain opponents, but they've not been as good against the run. And that's a big part of why they've underachieved.
Chris, I want to jump in real quick on, Clemson obviously struggled the week after Tennessee did with Spencer Rattler. And this is kind of relevant to what Dave was talking about with Clemson's defense. We know Tennessee's defense struggled a lot against South Carolina, and we know some of the stories behind it now with Jeremy Banks and NIL and whatever. But then Clemson did it a week later. Was that about Spencer Rattler turning a corner, do you think? Or do you think that was also just about Clemson's defensive woes?
Well, Spencer Rattler, prior to the Tennessee game, had not done anything very consistently all year long. So now we got 2 games in a row. So is that turning the corner? I mean, it's a positive sign to do it 2 in a row now. If they can do it 3 times in a row, they've got Notre Dame in the playoffs, in the bowl game. So I think they certainly hope so at South Carolina that he's turned the corner, and sometimes that happens that way. But we're not going to know that until we get a little bit longer stretch. And I do think that the performance against Clemson was even more impressive because it piggybacked off of, and I do think that Clemson has more personnel, better personnel than Tennessee defensively to do it and to back it up. And to have to do it in a game where you've got to win a shootout, which they did, because they dominated Tennessee. They didn't dominate Clemson. I mean, it was a back and forth, could have gone either way. That was impressive to do that and back that up. I always think it's, anybody can have a lot of success. Excuse me.
You're a busy man this morning, Chris.
Yeah, it's coaching search season. It's transfer portal season. It's a lot of stuff going on. And I think I would know how to turn that off. But anyway, that's kind of the my thoughts on that is that I think that he perhaps has turned the corner, but I don't know. I think that the South Carolina team, which I was critical of, I didn't think they were particularly well coached in the early part of the year. I didn't think they played with any consistency. Look, I give credit where credit's due. They did a good job against Tennessee, good job against Clemson, and I'm curious to see if they can build on that against Notre Dame, and we'll go from there.
So you talked about the importance of Dabo Swinney and the importance of loyalty to Dabo Swinney, basically within his own, community, I guess.
Right.
What is the difference? Let's just look at the difference between Heupel and Swinney, and why Heupel has having so much more success, I think, as of late in the recruiting process.
Well, I don't know. First of all, I think the fact that Clemson is perceived to be on a downswing. They've lost their edge. They've dominated in the ACC. They've not been as dominant looking. They got completely hammered by Notre Dame. Things that have not happened to Clemson in the past. There's been a perception, and it's rankled Clemson folks, that, well, you're only good because you're in the weak ACC. Well, it's not true, because they have won 2 national titles, and they have performed well outside of ACC play. And I do believe at their best, they could have been, top 2, top 3 in the SEC, and can be right there with Alabama and Georgia for a stretch. But again, consistency, and as time has gone along, it hasn't been quite as good. Which changed? Well, lost his coordinators, and Dabo is not the great X's and O guy. He's very average, in fact. So he's more of a culture builder, and kind of a guy that relates well to his players. Again, kind of very close relationship with them. But everybody relies on their coordinators. But certain guys rely on them more. The guys that are really good X's and O guys can have it's less intrusive when a coach leaves. This is a complete change. So they're winning mainly on talent. And I think while they're winning, you're seeing some of the issues start to, fray apart at the edges. It's not a disaster. Last year I thought it was a pretty good coaching job to rebound from all the things that happened. But you're looking at it, they're no longer they're making the playoffs, and they're not even a threat right now, even though with 2 losses, they were completely out. Whereas Tennessee, obviously, they're just building off the hot year, the explosive offense. That's why an Alex Scolish is, moving on. You strike while the iron's hot. So Tennessee's quote unquote the hot team, but as indication is that can go away like that. You can go from bad to really good very quick. You can go from good to, after, everybody was talking about how the future at Arkansas and Sam Pittman is great. Well, Sam is good, but they were talking about, oh, look, he's ready to take that. He's going to be great. And now it's you lose a few guys. It's a developmental program, and they're just kind of mediocre this year. So everybody, I think what it is everybody reacts to the moment. Clemson is still recruits at a very, very high level, and I think recruiting is all relative to your conference you're in. Clemson has never been the school that finishes 1, 2, or 3 in recruiting. They'll finish top 10 every year. They're the best in the ACC. Problem in the SEC is, you might finish in the top 5 in the SEC in recruiting and be third in the top 5 nationally and be third in the SEC. So everything's relative to the conference that you play in. And that's, I think, that why Josh is having some success. But is he having more success than Clemson? I think time's going to tell on that.
Chris, let me ask you this about the Alex Scolish situation. First, remind you that Big Orange Phillies is in North Knoxville and Maynardville Pike, very convenient to Maynardville and also convenient to the Halls and Powell area. So get out there, great food. great activities such as billiard starts. They've got cornhole as well, and they're family friendly. That's Big Orange Phillies. Alex Golish goes to South Florida, which for some reason is not anywhere close to South Florida. But anyway, despite the school's location, he goes to South Florida. And your thoughts on that move? Is he trying to take any other Tennessee coaches with him, to your knowledge?
Well, I'm sure I think it'll be people that are a little further down on the staff that he has connections with. I think he will, at least certainly offer a couple of positions, and it always depends upon the fit there for the specific individual. Everybody's trying to look for an opportunity. So first time coordinator, whatever, you will look for people on the staff. South Florida's, it's a challenging job, I'll say that. They are working towards getting that new stadium. It's in Tampa, and it's got a lot of area. Central Florida is kind of ahead of them. They got their on-campus stadium. They got a little bit better infrastructure. So South Florida is trying to get that. And I think that's really important, to be honest with you. It's very sterile. I don't care. You go to an NFL stadium, Raymond James Stadium, and that's your home stadium. And it just doesn't have quite the feel. But trying to catch Central Florida is what they're trying to do. They've had some coaches there that have not had a lot of success, quite frankly, that have had, some pedigree to, at least some experience. So this is going to be intriguing. I think what Alex is going to have to do is what he knows, and that is going to have to run a specialized offense, going to have to get some of that skill position talent in that both that South and Central Florida area, and see what he can do with it and maybe build towards the future. But they've not been real patient, and the reason is because they're looking across in Orlando and seeing that Central Florida is ahead of them.
Yeah, I know Caleb wants to jump in here, but if I can real quick, there's a debate on Twitter about how much he handled play calling, how much Josh Heupel handled play calling. What can you tell us about the inner workings of who developed the offense? I mean, I think it's mostly Heupel, but how much of input did Golish have in both play calling and development of the offense, play design, all that stuff?
Well, Alex ran all the offensive meetings because you've got to. When the head coach is the play caller, he's in those meetings, but a head coach often gets pulled out of a meeting to do head coach things, something he's got to deal with or what have you. So everything is run through Josh, but Alex is when you have a head coach who calls the plays, let's just say on offense, but it could be on defense as well. Somebody's got to coordinate the meetings, and it's got to be somebody that doesn't have to be a title, but has to coordinate the meetings for when the head coach can't be there, because he'll jump in there. He may stay in the meetings a lot, like Josh will be in the offensive meetings, and really won't step a whole lot other than to peek into the defensive meetings to get a feel. He's going to be in the offensive meeting. So it is Josh's offense. It is not, we just talked about a situation like Dabo and Clemson. It's not one of those situations. This is Josh's offense. Josh can run it, and who's ever going to coordinate it is going to do it like they've done it before. Somebody's going to coordinate it, organize it, and Josh will put his stamp on it. Things will run through Josh. So I don't listen. Don't want to be dismissive of because Alex is outstanding, and I'm happy for his opportunity. But this is something that Josh should be able to handle. Now, the biggest thing, and you can already see what people are going to say. The likelihood that this offense is going to pick up and be as good next year, we don't know. The quarterback play is going to be as good. Who's coming back? Who's coming in? There's a lot of things that are going to have an impact, more than just, who's going to be the coordinator or who's going to take Alex's place.
Chris, I wanted to jump back to the Tennessee Clemson game real quick, to the Orange Bowl. I was doing a little bit of my research. I didn't do as much as Dave did on Clemson, but I do know that we all know Tennessee. Joe Milton has major accuracy issues, and against a game like Clemson, you would think that would be a problem. I did see Notre Dame when they blew out Clemson, though. Drew Pine only threw for like 85 yards, and so can Tennessee beat Clemson without Milton? You know, with Milton playing a maybe even below average game.
Well, they're going to have to do it a lot differently because they're built a lot differently. Tennessee is than Notre Dame. Tennessee's a power team, and so they run play action. That's not what Tennessee does. So their success against Clemson is going to have to come with what they do. Run a lot of tempo, trying to get them misaligned, and take advantage of that secondary. So, yes, they can have success against Clemson. They absolutely can beat Clemson. But it's going to have to be within the confines of how they do it. It's going to require Joe Milton to be accurate because they will get guys and scheme guys open against Clemson. This secondary can be beat. But you got to hit those throws, and we don't know. We've got the Vanderbilt game, which is fine, but we got to see a lot of practice time. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how accurate he can be. I think there are going to be plays to be made against this Clemson secondary. That much I know. Whether Tennessee's going to be able to do it, I don't know. But are they going to come out and just blow Clemson off the ball and like Notre Dame did? No, because that's not what they do. They're going to be angle blocking, tempo, get to the second level. That's how Tennessee scheme works.
So let's switch to the college football playoff rankings and how it ended up and all that stuff. One thing I was really, I guess, kind of confused on is Penn State's 2 losses were to 2 top 5 teams, top 4 teams, one to Michigan and one to Ohio State. With everything that's going on, Alabama lost, to LSU and to Tennessee, and Tennessee lost heavily to both Georgia and South Carolina. Why wasn't Penn State considered more, ranked higher than either Alabama or Tennessee?
I think their wins, they're not having enough good wins. I think you mentioned it. The most impressive thing they did was, they lost. They actually got hammered in 2 games, and then they won all the games that they were kind of supposed to win. And I'm not saying that there wasn't some impressive wins against some decent teams, but they didn't have a really good win. I think that was the difference. I think the losses were decisive losses. They were hammered by both. Watching both the games, they weren't really close against those 2 teams. I think Penn State's good. I don't think there's anything special. I don't know that I can quibble so much about where they're ranked. I probably wouldn't have had them any higher, to be honest with you.
As far as Tennessee, Chris, do you think it's just Joey Halzle that they put in Golish's spot at the offensive coordinator position?
I think if they promote from within, that's the most likely scenario. But the other thing you have to look at when you have openings, and you've got to look at your staff, is there somebody out there that you'd like to add in a role that that might alter that a little bit. I think because you're not looking, Josh is not looking to change the offense or do anything different. It's still going to be his offense. Where who's most capable and has the best understanding of what they do among candidates for that job? Well, there's maybe some people outside that he might consider that could come in and seamlessly, with more experience, do that role. But if he can't get them, or if he decides that guy on his staff is just as good or better, then I think he promotes him. So, that's how you go through the process. It's just not, people say, well, go get this guy. And that he wants a guy that understands what they do, because they're not going to change the offense. They're not going to modify whether people think they should or shouldn't, and do a little bit, more, different things. That's not what he wants. So what he's looking for is that right fit. And I think it's somebody that's going to be comfortable being able to handle the role that Alex had. And so I think it's more than likely, depending upon who you might be able to get outside, more than likely going to be a promotion from within. That's just a guess, though.
Scale of 1 to 10. 1, absolutely idiotic. 10, you absolutely love it. Deion Sanders to Colorado.
You know, first of all, on Deion, we don't know how well he can coach. He's not coached very long. He's done a phenomenal job at Jackson State. He's put NIL deals together for Travis Hunter, his sons, and a few other folks. So he's got way more talent than anybody plays in the SWAC because nobody else has NIL deals over there. And he's done that. So we need to see how well he can coach. But I can tell you, I have studied this Colorado program for a while. Actually, I don't know if you guys know Rick George, but Rick was at Vanderbilt with Jerry DiNardo. Anyways, been around a while, and I know Rick really well. He's the athletic director at Colorado. It's been 25 years since they've had one good year. Mike McIntyre, ironically, George McIntyre's son, another Vanderbilt, ironic how, you throw that in there, and that was the connection there. And Mike did a nice job, was a coach of the year. We forget that just a few years ago, but they've had major problems. They've been, for some reason, they have been very reluctant to accept transfers in, like the transfer portal, accept them in academically, which is, I don't know how you're going to survive and be relevant if you're going to be that restrictive of that. That's obviously changed. They said we have gotten so bad, so irrelevant. I don't know how well it's going to be, but there's one thing that Deion does better than anybody. He moves the needle. Yeah. I mean, he has put them on the map. Typical Deion. I don't know if you heard what he said in the team meeting.
I did. It was phenomenal. It made me. It made me want to get out of bed and go.
He told his players, y'all get ready, get in the portal, because I'm bringing my own luggage. And he said, and it's Louis. And even I knew he was meaning Louis Vuitton. I mean, it's like typical Deion. He is that. So a lot of shtick. We'll see how well he does. I'm going to just tell you this. He's got two sons. The quarterback could line up and play for anybody in the SEC today. This guy has got big-time ability. So just by having the genes of he can bring his son with him, that gives you something that they haven't had in a long time. So it's going to bring a lot of juice. So here's what I say, too. There's also had some issues at Colorado with fundraising, with bringing money. When Colorado was really successful back in the Bill McCartney days, the Coors, the beer company, was a big, big reason why. They put a lot of money into that program. They have that's kind of been lost throughout the years. And so now Deion, what does Deion do the best? Fundraise, get things out there. So if nothing else, he's going to raise the level of that. And so I believe that a South Florida, and I know Colorado's a Pac-12 job, but where you need an identity, you need juice, you need excitement, you need to move the needle, I think that makes some sense. I think that makes a lot more sense than, say, at a place like Auburn, where, you're going to have the NIL money, where coaching's going to matter more. Here, they're going to get Colorado better just by getting better players, because they have, I think, the worst roster in Power 5.
Yeah.
The Power 5 schools. I think
Chris,
they have the worst roster.
Chris, I wanted to jump in because it's funny. You brought up Auburn, and I get that. But one thing that kind of threw me off was I had read reports, and I don't know how true they are, that Deion was down to Colorado and Cincinnati and chose Colorado. kind of shocked me because I think Cincinnati joining the Big 12, I think Cincinnati's a much better job nowadays. I mean, everything you just mentioned about Colorado, but also Cincinnati's now the second Power 5 school in Ohio, which is maybe the second most fertile recruiting state in the country. And I don't know. I was just kind of I would have taken Cincinnati. I would have thought that's a better job.
Well, I don't know that that Cincinnati offered him, and I mean, it's possible, but that's not my understanding, and so I don't know. So I don't know that he had the opportunity, but I do think the Colorado job intrigued him for a number of reasons. But let me just say this too. Mel Tucker spent like a very short time in Colorado, and he got the Michigan State job. So I think there's only one way to go but up at Colorado. I think at Cincinnati, I think that's an established program. And if, you're kind of expected to win there now, and if you don't, I mean, I think it's a safer job at Colorado because you can only go up. And I mean, think about the fact that if he can get this team to 8-4 next year, coach of the year. I mean,
Are we saying Deion ran from pressure?
Well, Deion, I think, is looking for opportunity. And I don't know that, again, I don't have it. I mean, there are media reports that he was a candidate for Cincinnati. My understanding of Cincinnati's search, that wasn't true. But, I can't say for certain.
Great stuff, Chris. I love the hire. I love the speech. I watched it at 10 o'clock last night, and I thought I'm going to bounce out of my bed and go join an anytime gym because I was fired up. I just love the content of it. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I love it. Go to LandryFootball.com to learn more about football than you ever dreamed possible. He is Chris Landry. I'm Dave Hooker. Chris will talk to you shortly. I certainly appreciate the time, sir.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you guys. Have a great one. Take care.
Yeah, he just goes. He goes. Did y'all watch the speech by chance? The whole.
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Oh, he goes in there. He goes. Some of you guys, just go ahead and get the portal, because then we'll have more room. So just go ahead and get in the portal. Some of you guys I want to talk to, but I just want you to know that I'm bringing a lot with me. And and the guys are sitting there. First of all. Well, there are 85 scholarship players. There were about 40 people. Okay. So there was about half the team that didn't show up for the head coach's first meeting. That's not a good move. And so that's how dysfunctional that program was. And he just steps in. He goes, I'm bringing my baggage with me. And listen, before the NIL, before the transfer portal, this is a stupid, idiotic hire. 10 years ago, terrible hire. But with what he brings to the table with NIL and transfer portal, it's an incredible hire. And don't think he's not going to mimic one thing that Bill McCartney did, and that was he's going to go straight into Compton. He's going to go straight into LA, and there are going to be plenty of parents that they don't want their kids to go to USC or UCLA. They want them out of that area. And it's a lot harder to get in trouble in Colorado than it is in LA. And he is going to poach kids out of that area. I'm not saying they're going to beat Southern Cal or the other better programs in the Pac-12, but within 2 years, they'll be up there in the conversation. It was just take 20 minutes of your day over coffee and watch it. You'll enjoy it. Nutrition World. Will make sure you enjoy your life because they have the high quality supplements that stand out, and they're not some acronym store out there that's just going to say, try this. I actually went and got a consultation, and they sent me the right place, and I know what I need. If you know what you need, go to nutritionw.com, nutritionw.com, and you know that you have the highest quality supplements in the biz. It's just that simple. Again, Nutrition World is phenomenal. nutritionw.com. Back in 2 minutes, this day in sports history, and it's a goodie. Stay tuned.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center.
Hey folks, Gary Viles here, Viles Automotive on Callahan Drive. I've been selling cars here in East Tennessee for 27 years. In that time, I've come to realize it's not about the car. It's about you, the customer. So I'm here to take care of you just like family. Good credit, bad credit, you name it, we can get you taken care of. If we don't have it, we can find it for you. We go across the country to get any vehicle that you want. And here at Viles Automotive, we don't believe in fake numbers. We just give you great deals. And as always, we want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
This is Steve Rain. I own the Midnight Oil and Michelin Tire Direct service station here in Ottawa. It's not a fancy place, never has been, but it's a clean place with clean restrooms and good folks who work here. We sell gas and fix cars, nothing glamorous, but we love what we do, and we're going to keep doing it for a long time to come. There's not many real service stations left, and that's a shame. We're the guys just like the guys back in your hometown. We'll fix your tire, change your oil, and put a new set of Michelins on your car. If you want a Twinkie, you'll just have to keep on going. Thanks for the business.
This day in sports history, putting things in perspective, exclusively on Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker.
You're so old. When you were a kid, rainbows were black and white.
And Amanda LaFratta.
New kids on the block just called. They wanted you as a backup dancer.
It is December the 5th. The transfer portal is open. And on this day back in 1998, the Vols won the 1998 SEC championship game with a 24-14 victory over Mississippi State. In Atlanta, Georgia, it's kind of an ugly game. T. Martin threw TD passes to Peerless Price and Cedric Wilson in the span of 32 seconds, both on the same out route, if I remember correctly. In the fourth quarter, Travis Henry ran for 120 yards. Of course, the Vols that season would go on to win the national title and needed a little bit of help to get in. Was it the week before or the week of, Caleb, where UCLA and Kansas State had to lose? I think it was the week before. Is that right?
No, it was the week of. They didn't really need help, though. They were number one in the BCS going into that Saturday, but that was a way to – I guess you could say they needed help, and I don't think they would have beaten Kansas State in the national title that year because Kansas State was running the triple option, and John Chavis, for the life of him, could not figure it out during that time. So even though Florida State was a more talented team than Kansas State, I think Florida State's style was more simplistic and easier for Chavis to handle. So,
well, if you remember too, Florida State was on their third string quarterback.
Yeah, I always reject that narrative because Florida State beat Florida with their third string quarterback.
Well,
2 weeks.
But you got a month to prepare for the guys. The guy's nickname was the Rooster, and they kept playing that. Was it Sound? No, what was it?
Tennessee was without Jamal Lewis. I mean, my
goodness, Jamal Lewis had punched his ticket for the NFL as soon as he suffered that ACL injury in September.
Oh, I know that, but I'm saying Tennessee. When Florida State had Chris Winkie, they lost to NC State earlier that year, 24-7. Then they had Marcus Elton, and they beat Florida by a larger margin than Tennessee beat Florida.
I think to some extent you're splitting hairs. Let me just ask you this. Would you rather face Marcus Alton in his prime or Chris Winkie in his prime?
Okay. I would rather face Chris Winkie in his prime. I'm going to be honest. I still reject when a lot of people say that made too much of a difference in that game because there were a lot of different factors that, you can take into account. And again, Tennessee was without its best offensive weapon for a lot longer than Florida State was without its best offensive weapon that year.
Brittany said, I have to tell y'all, she was nice enough to put together this day in sports history. She says, December's this day was so hard to put together. You did a great job, Brittany. We love you. We love you. All right, Amanda LaFratta, I want to start with you. So Heisman voting is due in by 5 o'clock today. I went ahead and took the time to do mine because they've got this new funky system where you have to log in. And you know how bad I am at computers. So sure enough, I could have been stuck for that happened one time. I had to call in my vote when they first switched over. So I've got mine in. I'm not supposed to say, but I wrote a column on offthehooksports.com. I would encourage people to check out and really beefed up the content there. So excited about the future. I will say Hendon Hooker was on it. And Amanda, I will just ask you, who would you, I'll start with you, and then Caleb, let me go to you. And sorry for putting you on the spot, Amanda, but who would you have 1, 2, 3, do you think? Or do you want Caleb to go first?
No, I can go. I'm fine with going. Honestly, it's kind of like the playoff this year. There's not just runaway favorites. They're in the, teams, there's not a runaway favorite, I don't think, for college football. I mean, I could see Georgia being it, but then I could also see Georgia dropping the first game to Ohio State just out of fluke, something happening, because Ohio State's very talented, just not very well coached. Anyway, I definitely wouldn't. I can just eliminate people. Caleb Williams will be off for character alone.
I'm not supposed to say, but I might have agreed with you there. Hint,
yes.
Hint, wink, wink. Go ahead.
CJ Stroud off for lack of execution in games.
I'm not supposed to say, but I might have agreed with you there. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
My God. So I probably would have put it in this order. In the last week, I would have waited to cast my vote till the last possible moment, because I think if you cast your vote already as a Heisman voter before this weekend, you should have your vote removed. I think you should not be allowed to ever vote again. Just get new people in there that won't put their vote in until they see the championship games.
I totally agree. And you sent the email last Monday, a week ago today, and I was like, why do I even need this now? So yes, you can vote before the championship games. You used to be able to vote in like early November, which was bizarre, but go ahead.
So I would, and I know Caleb Williams is going to win it. I have a pretty significant feeling that that's going to happen. But my top 3 would be Bryce Young, because I think Alabama would be crap without him. 2 would be Hendon Hooker, because again, I think he meant the most to his team. If not 1, I would verge on that, but missing a game is a lot to me. Missing a game and a half is a lot. And that's why Bryce and Hendon lose that spot. Number 1, I think, would be TCU's quarterback after watching him, just because it's not, he played every game, but without him, TCU would be significantly worse. He carried that team, I believe, on his shoulders, watching him this weekend, and the amount of heart he put into that game. He was out there, NIL money or not, I don't think it would have mattered. I think he was out there doing everything. Literally, the kid looked like he was going to pass out, doing everything possible to get his team that victory. And when he did not, he was shattered. And I think he's leaving it all on the line for his team. And I think that should be the most important thing for people.
Wow. You and I have a lot in common without me saying anything. Caleb, who would be your top 3? Okay.
Sorry.
Are you that guy on Zoom calls that always has their thing muted early?
Yes. First of all, I'm going to say, you two make me sick. I don't care about character. Go out and win. And I like players that play and got a little swag. And I like Caleb Williams. And I'm sorry, I'm not saying he's my Heisman. I like him. Dude's a baller. I liked Johnny Manziel back in the day when he was doing all of his shenanigans back in 2014 or 2013. Maybe I reward bad behavior. I don't know. But I...
It's like, yes,
yeah, God forbid you ever have a son. I mean, where was Caleb Saturday?
I'm sorry?
Where was Caleb Saturday?
What do you mean? Where was Caleb Saturday?
Where was he Saturday? Because the second half of that game, he couldn't hit the broadside of the
Friday.
barn.
Friday.
Oh,
You're right.
Friday, yes, Friday. My bad.
Yeah, yes, that is true. But he did throw for like 360 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, but I'm not saying he's my Heisman winner. I'm just saying I don't care about character. I grew up listening. I grew up at the peak of Southern hip hop, and I love the arrogance. And
Caleb,
anyways,
it does change though when your 17-year-old sends you a picture, and I'd not been aware of it. These kids are all over social media. In case you haven't heard, it's the new thing. And he sends me a picture of the guy, and Amanda sent it to me the same day, of Caleb Williams holding a ball that has FU, the other letter, Notre Dame. My son saw it. I mean, it's hard for me to cast a ballot for a guy that does. And then, okay, maybe he thinks that's a cute thing and nobody's going to see it, but he does it. Amanda pointed out to me he did it the next week.
Y'all are putting me in an awkward position because I don't have children. I don't yet have children on the way, so I can't speak on that. And maybe that's why I am the way I am, but I've never really cared for a little bit of moxie and a little bit of talking. If you want,
it does change you. I was a Cowboys fan, Amanda, so maybe I'm being.
I was gonna say you like the '90s Cowboys. Who are you to talk, Dave?
Maybe, Amanda.
We're talking about Deion Sanders over here just last segment, and he's like the king of this.
Yeah, but we always talk about how everybody wants to talk about how these players get themselves into these situations, and then they get arrested and all this other stuff, and people are like, how did they have that? How could that have happened? Because we build them up to be something so much. It's because of you, Caleb. It's because of you. It's because of people like you who love US, who love the smack talk. And the kid paints his fingernails, for God's sakes. I mean, that first of all threw me off. That threw me off. But then to write F whoever you're playing on your fingernails, I think somebody probably tried to rip his finger off on Friday night because he was bleeding like crazy. But I'm pretty sure somebody probably tried to rip his finger off, and that's why they're probably trying to rip those nails off. Because
my only rule is
don't do that.
My only rule is the more you talk, the more you have to back it up, and the more humiliated you will be if you don't back it up, which he was humiliated.
Oh, yeah.
But that's
wonderful.
But if you talk and you back it up, like the 90s Cowboys, where, they'd show up to practice hungover and be like, yeah, let's just cancel practice today because we know we're the best team in the NFL. And then they go and win the Super Bowl because they knew no one could beat them. And, hey, 90s Cowboys backed it up 3 and 4 years. And, but, okay, going back to the Heisman, I will say, sorry, I got off track. Funny enough, Caleb Williams, it's down to 4 for me, and I don't know where to go because there's 2 that I think statistically have the edge, and statistically in big moments, I would say Caleb Williams and Hendon Hooker are those 2. If you look at Hendon Hooker's efficiency, it's insane. I mean, he's the most efficient quarterback I've ever watched play football, and he did it in the SEC. But then there is the elevating play of your team, and that is where the Bryce Young and Max, is it Duggan is how you pronounce his name, right? Not Dugan, it's Duggan.
I think, yes, Duggan. I've got a little confused on that one.
That's where the Bryce Young and Max Duggan come in. And I've always been a fan of the player that does the most to elevate his team. And that's where I'm going to Max Duggan because don't get me wrong, I think Hendon Hooker is great. I think there's a lot of quarterbacks you could have plugged into Tennessee's system that would have been very good. Just get Heupel's system and the receivers. There's not a lot of quarterbacks you could plug into TCU system like Max Duggan.
Guys, let me ask you a question, especially you, Amanda, because you and I talked about this. I don't remember us really discussing Max Duggan at all. Did he just come up on our radars this past weekend significantly? I mean, I know we knew who he was, but the 3 of us are kind of all saying the same thing with him.
I think honestly, and I think there's times where somebody can come up and win the Heisman in the last moment. I think that's him for me because it's almost as if we've eliminated everybody else and he's the one that sticks out. And I know Caleb Williams was the favorite and he's still the favorite. He's probably going to win it and I'm going to, puke. But I think that watching him leave it on the field like he did on Saturday was that key moment. And again, I don't think the Big 12 is that great of a conference. I just don't. I think TCU taking on, honestly, the top 10 may squeak by with 2 wins, like out of the top 10. They may win twice.
Yep.
But he's the reason that they're even in the conversation, and just his character and his heart. I can't.
Brittany said, I think he had played well all along, but because he plays for TCU, he was discounted. I think there's some truth to that. I think, weren't we all just kind of waiting? If you didn't go out of your way to watch TCU, which you really have to do, I mean, you have to flip around to find it. You probably were just waiting for them to lose, right? I mean, didn't everybody think? Yeah, the whole season, you're like, okay, this little dream, this fairy tale, and probably a lot of people thought the same way about Tennessee, but at least Tennessee had some sort of tradition. So Smoky Mountain Red said, is there actual hope for, well, and it did happen in Tennessee. Smoky Mountain Red said, is there actual hope for Hendon Hooker to win or even get an invite? Honest opinion. I believe from the people I've talked to, now this is a limited group. I didn't poll 50 people, but I did talk to about 5 or 6 over the past week that they all had Hendon on their ballot. Now, these are only one person covers Tennessee, but is as objective as anybody that's ever covered any team. Another one covers LSU. I mean, so it was all over the place. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's going to get an invite, and I don't know that I thought that a week ago.
Well, people knocked themselves out this past weekend. I mean, really, that's what happened.
Yeah, this is very much like 2016, I think, when Lamar Jackson won the Heisman. And Hendon Hooker played a lot better the last month of this season than Lamar Jackson did the last month of that season with Louisville. Lamar Jackson won it totally by default. Probably should have ended up going to Deshaun Watson. Again, we did not, in all seriousness, we did not know about the character flaws with Deshaun Watson at that time. That's why I'm saying that now.
But you would have voted for him, Caleb.
Not
you would have
that.
voted for him.
Not that. No, I would not have voted. That crosses a line.
Character don't matter.
Yeah,
Caleb, character does not matter.
I actually heard rumors in recruiting, but the thing that you have to remember is if it's a runaway, they can invite less people so that 2 people aren't sitting there looking stupid like in the NFL draft room, and they're not going to win. Okay, so they can invite 3 to 5 people. So with the fact that this seems like a more wide open race than most years, I think they could invite 5. And if they invite 5, there's no way he's out. Okay. If they just invite 3, then yeah, I mean, I could see it. It's a 50-50 to me.
I agree.
No, I mean, I think he's in regardless. And I mean, the last week, I think the last 2 weeks is where you get knocked out of the Heisman, where CJ Stroud got knocked out against Michigan. He has been mediocre in a lot of games this season. And when Michigan played Ohio State, CJ Stroud was abysmal. So I think he got knocked out that game. I think, in my opinion, if people waited to vote, which, God, I hope they did, then you would have knocked Caleb Williams out Friday. I just think that some people took a tumble.
Or at least down a couple of notches.
Yes. And I think Caleb Williams, if hopefully his character or lack thereof played a role in his painting his fingernails and doing the Heisman pose on national television and taunting the other players and all that other stuff. Like, if it were me, he would have been out of my Heisman just based on character alone.
Let me throw a couple of hypotheticals at you. First, let me start with this. Does anybody think Hendon Hooker can actually win it?
No.
I don't either.
No.
Okay. Hendon Hooker continues to play, doesn't get hurt. His numbers are high. They lose to South Carolina on a last-second field goal. Does he win it?
He's top 2 at least.
I think he wins it.
I think he wins it too at that point.
That's heartbreaking.
Only because I think he wins it. It also because it's funny. A lot of Heisman voters do think like David Amanda, not me. They do like character, and Hooker has high character. My evidence for that is 2007, Tim Tebow. That was one of the worst, least deserving Heismans of all time. That should have gone to Darren McFadden. I've been saying that for years, but everybody likes Tim Tebow, even though he had 4 losses that year, and he was the reason they lost to LSU that year. So I do remember the 2007 Heisman went to Tim Tebow because everybody liked him, and Hendon Hooker would have had that type of cachet had he kept it close.
Character was out in 2014 when they gave it to Jameis Winston. Let's not play. Character went out. Yeah. Yes, whatever. Character
and
went out.
2012 with Johnny Manziel.
Yes, and 2010 with Cam Newton. So character went out the window a while ago.
The problem with 2010 and 2013, I think, though, with Jameis and Cam, and Dave would probably agree with me on that. I think they were so head and shoulders above the rest of college football that year. It was like, it wouldn't have been a serious award if you didn't give it to them.
I felt dirty throwing for Cam or voting for Cam.
But it's like,
but I didn't feel like I had a choice.
Yeah, it was so obvious.
Always have
2000, but if it's close, character can push you ahead.
Seriously. Go ahead.
If it's close, character can. And by the way, can we talk about layers of character here? There's a difference between what Jameis Winston and Deshaun Watson have allegedly been accused of doing versus writing F you on fingernails. Okay, that's not like physically harming anybody. Okay, we're talking about character for saying some mean things that might hurt somebody's feelings when we talk about Caleb Williams versus doing some actual really horrendous things allegedly with Jameis and Deshaun Watson.
Arrogance is my issue. Arrogance and not confidence. Confidence is different than arrogance. Caleb Williams is arrogant. That's a problem for me. Jameis Winston's arrogant. Johnny Manziel is arrogant. Baker Mayfield is arrogant. I mean, a lot of these Heisman winners were arrogant. But throw away what they did on the side or what they're alleged of doing. The character, my biggest character issue, 2 of them, is arrogance and a lack of discipline. And I think each one of those players have that. And we've seen it come out in droves, if not in college, in the NFL. That's my
I would
issue.
agree with that. It just seems like Tennessee, over the course of a century, has found unique ways to not win the Heisman. The Heisman has found unique ways not to give it to Tennessee.
Didn't character allegedly cost Peyton Manning in '97? Didn't that trainer incident?
The teabag incident.
Yes, that led to some. Wow, you said it, Amanda. Well, I wasn't going to say it, but yeah.
Well, I don't think that was.
I've heard rumors that it cost him the Heisman.
I don't think so. I think he was just a boring candidate. I think and I think Tennessee, their sports information department, overdid it and promoted him. They sent out, literally, they killed an entire Amazon rainforest in the amount of stuff they send out. Now you just get it on Twitter and such. Zool Beer Company, ZoolBeer.com is the official craft beer of Off the Hook Sports. Want to be sure and thank City Heating and Air Conditioning and City Heat and Air. Integrity matters. CityHeatandAir.com. Bassy Lawn and Garden, man alive. It is worth the drive. And now it's time to give away stuff. Then that is awesome because we're going to do it right now. It's time for a little bit of message board bingo. Amanda will read the message board post. And if you can tell me what team's message board that showed up on, then you will win. Caleb will have. How long should we give it, Amanda? Let's depend on hints. I'm going to give a 10-second countdown at some point. So you better get your votes up there because I know there's a slight lag. So here we go. Message board bingo is now, and it's brought to you by Craft Treats. CraftTreats.com is phenomenal. Use the code Off the Hook, the promo code, you get 20% off, or you can just win free stuff right here. So Caleb, don't blurt out the answer. Give people a second to see if they can theoretically beat you. Message board bingo is now.
Okay, I'm just going to start with the hint first because I feel like that's a better option.
Well, then, then it would be a tease, right?
Okay. This is not an SEC school. This is not an SEC
Not an SEC school.
The fact that any human being that watches football thinks that TCU is better than Alabama, it's just nuts. Not an SEC school.
Ooh, that's hard then.
That's why I chose it.
I like it. I like you challenging the listeners, viewers. So go ahead and post now. Can you give us a conference?
No, that's too
Okay.
easy.
It wouldn't be. I'm trying to think of the other. Brittany says Baylor. Mitchell
Nope, it
says
is not.
Michigan.
Nope.
All right, so you got 10 seconds, message board posties, and you can post more than once before Caleb throws it out there, and we'll see if he gets it correct. 10 seconds start now. I have no idea. Smoky Mountain Red says Texas.
Yes, it's Texas.
It is Texas. Texas.
Yep.
All right, well, here is my email. I want to remind you that you need to go to crafttreats.com, and they've got the chill pills great for my dog's just jumping up on the bed now. It's like a rejuvenation thing because he's got arthritis and he's jumping up there. I had to spot him one time. That's fine. But he's like, he's 7 of his last 7 with a slight spot. But he does a little, where he's got his front paws on. And he's about to make it. But he couldn't even get up there before the chill pills. The chill pills will help with arthritis, anxiety. The chill pills will also help with digestive issues. Go to crafttreats.com. Use the promo code Off the Hook. You'll get 20% off. But Smoky Mountain Red saying, damn, lucky guess. You did get it, so you are correct. We had guesses of Clemson and Kansas State. Did you know it, Caleb? Be honest. Don't.
No, I would have said Ohio State. I'm not going to lie. So I wanted to be right and really arrogant just to annoy Amanda. I wanted to just be like one of those really arrogant, like I'm the rightest person ever, but I wasn't able to do that in this one.
You're feisty. A lot to talk about tomorrow in the program. We will be joined by a Clemson insider. So we'll get an early look at the Tigers. I thought about doing that today, but there was just so much to talk about. Didn't have time. And if you don't have an opportunity, just check out the Deion Sanders video. It is phenomenal. I don't know if he's full of it. I don't know if he's going to take care of business, but it is a great watch. And I'll just leave it at that. Have a fantastic day, everyone. This is a presentation